So over the last 2 weeks or so, you have seen me on this channel really kind of noodle, play with, and ask for advice about a very simple framework to get wealthy. In fact, there are only 3 steps that anybody can execute to get wealthy. What I'm going to do here in a series of 3 videos is I'm going to talk about each step individually, and then I'm going to have the 3 of us talk about how we did it. Because again, the keys to getting wealthy are the same, but you can do them differently. Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing super awesome. Excited for this weekend's event and for this video.
There you go. Dion, how are you?
Howdy, I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to creative ways to put my dry powder to work.
There you go. There you go. Well, folks, step 1, we're going to go to Dion first on this. The step 1 of this is creating dry powder. You can call it disposable income, investing capital, whatever you want to call it. But basically, where you are today, you need to increase your dry powder. And again, you could do that one of 2 ways. You can attack it by lowering expenses, or you could attack it by growing income, or of course, you can do both of them. So Dion, when you go back to being $89,000 in debt, you wanted to start creating capital, call it the income snowball. How did you attack creating and growing dry powder consistently?
I did it the unpopular way. What seems to be popular is all of the YouTube channels that blow up because they say you can invest with low or no money down, how to use other people's money, how to do creative financing when although the normal ways of investing don't work. This is exactly how I would do it today. I saved a down payment for a house hack. I divided my income that was above what it took me to survive into 2 piles. This pile attacked any adjustable rate or debt with an interest above 6% out of that debt that I didn't know until the divorce. And then this pile was set aside for the first house hack. And it took 2 years. That's why it's unpopular. Most people are like, oh no, in 2 years, I want to be retired. I haven't started investing yet, but by 2 years from now, I've heard it can happen. I want to have enough cash flow to never work again. I'm like, no, in 2 years, I'd like to do a deal to reduce my living expenses. And then in 2 years, I'd like to save the dry powder for the next investment. And then as the income snowball kicked in, I saved faster and more. It was a slow first start. Those first 5 years sucked. There are creative, more innovative, quicker ways to do it that generally multiply the risk factor, which I was 40 when I started investing. I have a lot of decades left to take a bunch of risk. When I hear Cody and Christian talk, and Cody says something like, well, yeah, if you do that, then you lose all your money, and that's no fun. And when you're 20, yeah, that's no fun.
Right.
When you're 40 and you're on I wanted a 10-year span. Mm-hmm. Dry powder comes from, this sucks, increasing your income, decreasing your expenses, and time.
Yeah. So again, because I know your story, I mean, you did some creative things to increase income, right? You told us one time, at least I thought I heard, that you were selling things in video games. I'm like, I don't even know that was a thing, but you found other ways to produce, even just small pieces of capital that you can use. That, I mean, people can really get creative nowadays.
Yeah, whenever somebody mentions saving, and I usually make the same mistake too, people think of reducing expenses.
Right.
And saving starts with increasing your income. And there's several different ways. It's learn a skill to be more attractive to your employer to climb the corporate ladder. Change companies sometimes for a bigger pay increase than staying at the same company. Develop a side hustle. And for me, I was a single parent with 3 kids, didn't have a lot of money. So developing a hobby outside of the house or anything that would make money would be challenging. So I played video games with my kids, sold stuff on eBay. That generated $300, maybe $400 a month in income to be added to the next investment.
Yeah, it's really fun because Casey, our newest millionaire that we had to this show, she created an Etsy store. Yeah. Right. I mean, again, you folks, there's no excuse today, right? With the online applications, your phone, there's lots of ways to create a couple $100 a month. And if you do it consistently, it turns into thousands of dollars. So Matt, let's go back to you. Step 1, creating dry powder. What did that mean for you when you got this thing started?
Anything, whatever it was, flipping stuff from yard sales, selling sports cards, anything. And so I think that was one of the big things for me was, I like Gary Vaynerchuk, and we're kind of like separated at birth. I'm kind of like, the much larger, heavier version.
Is he the mini me? He's the mini me
doesn't fit in many things. And he's far wealthier than I am, so he's done it better. But I think that was one of those things where it was like, it was constant. It was always looking at things that I was interested in. The first thing was I had to be interested. The second thing is I could skill up. There was a way to skill up doing it and get better than what other people are at it. So I could then be more valuable than others were in the industry of doing whatever it was. And then it was following through and being disciplined about doing it. You know, it's like we have the kids on the yard sale train, and for 5 months every year, Saturday mornings, we go yard sale together, and they're learning and they're seeing, and they get things that they want, which is they do work around the house, they get an allowance, things like that, not an allowance for nothing. But when you look at it, and they're learning the principles of business, buying undervalued assets that might be used, but still in good condition, and something that they can either hey, I can use this myself and I really like it and I enjoy it. And so it saved me money where I'm not having to go to the store and pay $10 for it. I paid $2 for it and I'm still getting the same amount of enjoyment. Or it is, I think later on when, you know, maybe when they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, they can look at it and say, hey, I bought this for $2, but I see I can sell it for $10. Now, it's not to treat everything like a job, but for me, that was fun. It was the thrill of the hunt. You know, I would sit there and I would go through boxes of baseball cards, looking at all these stuff that these guys set aside. And every once in a while you find a hit of something that they marked for $2 that was now worth 20. And because they don't go through their boxes all the time. So I'm taking that time to go through. And so I get that hit. I buy it for 2 and I sell it for 17, and boom, there you go. And it took me X amount of time. So everybody has those things that they're into, and it's really just finding a way to monetize those things that will help you create that dry powder. And the most important investment anyone can make, the most valuable thing anybody has is time. So if that's the most valuable thing that you have, invest the most valuable thing you have in the most important thing you're going to do, which is yourself. You have to do a skill, and to learn that, you're going to have to spend a bunch of time investing in yourself, like you're looking at real estate. People don't go out and buy one. And if they do, they lose.
Yeah. So again, I've talked about all the time, because it was just the most important for me on this topic to highlight that Olivia and I went from spending 100% of our income to spending 50 over a year. It was like 10 or 15% was easy. Then there was the hard, and then there was the uncomfortable. Yeah. But I do want people to realize something I haven't gone into great deal out. It's kind of to Dion's, both of your point is we also skilled up, right? I changed jobs 3 times, right? I went from Quantum to Sun Micro. I worked at, I got a big bump there. I went from Sun Micro to a startup. The startup, I changed jobs. I went from a straight W-2 to a commission-based job. So my take home, every other week was less, but I had much more upside. So again, definitely was taking the opportunities to skill up. I earned an MBA along the way, all because I was trying to get better at the day job. Right. But yeah, for us, it was probably, amongst the 3 of us, I would say probably 60% of our stacking paper came from reducing expenses, and the other 40% was increasing the W-2. I don't think we've ever talked about that, but it really depends on who you are. I work in the Silicon Valley. Obviously, there are a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, even though they make $250 a year. You don't have to do that. And then the other thing I want to acknowledge that both of you didn't, but I think it warrants it here. You both took your largest expense, and because of house hacking, you whacked it to 0 or even positive. So again, there are things you can do. Again, Anna Kelly sells the big house in Texas, moves to a 4-plex in Pennsylvania, lives upstairs with 2 kids. And she says it was the best financial move she ever made. So again, folks, if you want to stack dry paper or dry powder, you can do it. There are lots of options, but step 2 and step 3, which we will get into in a minute, do not happen unless you can do that. So Matt, we'll go back around. Any closing thoughts on where they can find you?
Yeah, by far, house hacking was the biggest difference. You can get the pay raises, you can get the skill up, and depending on what level you skill up, it can be huge. But not having a $2,200 a month mortgage payment or rent and actually getting paid $300 to live where I lived, yeah, I'll do that.
Dion?
Closing thoughts is on this dry powder, there's a couple of categories for it. Every dollar that you add to the money that you have for down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs, and reserves, more and more options open up for you. And you can find me right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom.
Thanks, guys.